I thought my first company get-together would be easy. I had already been working with everyone for a few weeks, and my English felt good enough at work. But the moment people stopped talking about projects and started talking like friends, everything changed. 5 minutes into the party, I could understand most of the words, but I had no idea what half of the sentences really meant. That was the night I realized workplace English and real-life office English are not always the same thing. Our manager had invited the whole team to a casual Friday night get-together at a small rooftop bar downtown. I almost said no because I was tired, but I told myself, go. This is how you get to know people. Before I left home, I even practiced a few safe sentences like, how was your week? And do you have any plans for the weekend? I thought I was prepared. I was not prepared. When I walked in, my manager saw me and said, "Hey, you made it." For a second, I wondered why he sounded surprised because I had already told him I was coming. Then I realized, "You made it" was just a warm way to say, "I'm glad you came." He pointed toward the table and said, "Grab a drink and make yourself at home." I knew every word, but make yourself at home sounded strange in a bar. Of course, he did not mean I should act like I was literally at home. He just meant, relax, get comfortable. You're one of us tonight. A coworker named Maya waved me over and asked, "So how are you settling in?" I gave her a long answer about my apartment, my commute, and the grocery store near my house. She smiled and said, "I meant here at work, but that's good too." I laughed, but inside I thought, okay, one misunderstanding already. A few minutes later, someone started joking about our team lead, Daniel. Maya said, "Don't let him fool you. He acts relaxed, but he's a total workaholic." Daniel laughed and said, "That is absolutely not true." Someone else replied, "Oh, please, you answered emails on your vacation." Then Maya looked at me and said, "See, I'm not kidding." I knew the word kidding, but the whole exchange was moving so fast that I barely had time to react. I smiled and said, "Yes, I understand. It was correct English, but it sounded much more formal than everyone else." Everyone around me was saying things like, "No way, that's wild," "Fair enough," and "I know, right?" I realized they were not giving full answers, but the conversation still flowed perfectly. Then Daniel asked, "We might hit another place after this." "You in?" I heard hit another place and immediately pictured someone hitting a building. I also knew the word in, but you in did not sound like a complete question to me. Maya noticed my face and said, "He means we may go somewhere else after this. Do you want to come?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm down." The second I said it, she smiled and said, "There you go." I had heard "I'm down" before, but that was the first time I used it naturally in a real conversation. Later, someone asked Daniel if he was staying late. He looked at his phone and said, "Nah, I'm probably going to call it soon." Again, I understood every word except the meaning. Call what? Who was he calling? Then I heard someone say, "Same. I'm wiped." That was when I realized call it meant he was going to stop for the night, and I'm wiped meant I'm exhausted. A few minutes later, the conversation moved to weekend plans. One coworker said, "I'm keeping it pretty low-key this weekend." Another said, "Same. I've got nothing planned. I'll probably just wing it." I understood nothing planned, but low-key and wing it were completely new to me in that moment. From the context, I figured out that low-key meant relaxed and not too busy, and wing it meant deciding what to do without a real plan. Then somebody asked me, "What about you?" Anything fun lined up? I almost froze because I had never heard lined up used like that. But this time, instead of trying to translate every word, I answered the meaning of the question. I said, "Nothing big. I'm probably just going to take it easy." Maya nodded and said, "Honestly, that sounds perfect." For the first time that night, I felt like I was actually part of the conversation instead of taking an English test. Then the topic changed again. Two coworkers started talking about a friend who had canceled dinner at the last minute. One of them said, "He bailed on us again." The other replied, "That tracks." I understood neither phrase, but I could tell from their faces that neither one was positive. Later, I learned that bail on someone means to cancel or leave someone hanging, and that tracks means something matches what you already know about a person or situation. By then, I stopped trying to understand every sentence perfectly. I started listening for the mood, the situation, and the phrases people repeated. When somebody told a bad travel story, I said, "That's rough." When someone told me they hated early meetings, I said, "I hear you." When Daniel explained why he had canceled the team lunch, I said, "Fair enough." None of those responses were complicated, but suddenly I sounded much more natural. Near the end of the night, my manager looked at me and asked, "You hanging in there?" This time I did not panic. I knew he was not asking whether I was literally hanging from something. I smiled and said, "Yeah, I'm good, just taking it all in." He laughed and said, "Good, glad you came out." Again, came out did not mean what a textbook might make you think it meant. In this situation, it simply meant, "I'm glad you came to the event." On my way home, I kept thinking about how strange the night had felt at the beginning and how different it felt by the end. My grammar had not improved in 2 hours. My vocabulary had not suddenly doubled. What changed was that I stopped expecting real conversations to sound like textbook conversations. Real people use shortcuts. They use unfinished questions, they use phrases whose meaning is much bigger than the individual words, and they respond with small, natural reactions instead of perfect full sentences. If you hear, "You made it," it often means, "I'm glad you came." If someone asks, "You in?" they usually mean, "Do you want to join us?" If someone says I'm down, it usually means, "Yes, I'm interested." If someone says I'm wiped, they mean they are very tired. If someone says I'm keeping it low-key, they mean they want something relaxed and simple. If someone says, "I'll wing it," they mean they will decide as they go. If someone says he bailed on us, it means he canceled or left unexpectedly. If someone says, "That tracks," it means the information fits what they already expected. If someone says that's rough, it is a natural way to show sympathy. If someone says, "I hear you," it often means, "I understand how you feel." If someone says, "Fair enough," it means, "I can understand or accept your reason." And if someone asks, "You hanging in there?" they are usually checking whether you're doing okay. These are not difficult words, but when native speakers put them together at normal speed, they can sound like a completely different language. That is why listening practice should not only teach you words, it should teach you what people really mean when they say them. So if you have ever walked into a party, lunch, meeting, or casual conversation and suddenly felt like your English disappeared, you are not alone. You may know more English than you think. You may just need more time with the English people actually use. If this kind of real-life English helps you, keep listening, keep noticing the small phrases, and come back for the next story. I'll see you in the next episode.